Even without food or water, I can survive for as long as a year. I am a Galapagos tortoise. Volcanoes and ocean currents created these islands and nurtured our slow, ancient clan. My carapace is old and heavy, like weathered rings on a rock. Every groove is a mark carved by time itself. On this land scorched by the equatorial sun, we have lived for millions of years. We walk slowly, yet we never stop. We are massive as boulders, silent as the earth, called living fossils by humans. You humans often say we have superpowers, that even without food or water, we can survive for a year. Actually, this is not a miracle, but the wisdom of survival, bestowed upon us by nature through life. Metabolism is like cooling lava. Steady, nearly still. Every mouthful of leaf, every drop of dew is carefully stored, turning into a lifeline during long droughts. When drought comes and vegetation dies, we lie dormant deep in mud pits, shutting down our needs, sleeping like rocks, relying on the last bits of water and waiting for the wind to bring the mist. It is this ability that makes us the most resilient travelers in the drifting current. I remember my mother whispering to me that our ancestors once drifted from distant north, following the currents to this isolated island in the sea. That was a silent migration. No noise, only a slow but determined voyage. Back then, the island was a paradise without enemy. The breeze was gentle, the grass, and behind the dark clouds was a sun that never set. Our lives are long. We can live for 200 years. In these long years, we witnessed mountains rise, volcanoes fall silent, stars rotate, and humans set foot here. But longevity does not mean fear. After humans arrived, cracks appeared in our fate. The year I was born, my mother completed the most difficult journey of her life. She descended slowly from the volcanic highlands, crawled for dozens of kilometers, crossed bushes and rock faces, taking a whole month just to reach that ancestral delivery room. It was a patch of dry, warm sand, the place where our ancestors buried their hope. But that ancient path has now been cut by humans. Farmland slashed the earth like scars. Barbed wire pierces her shell like blades. You may not know, but our shell is not cold hard armor. It is living tissue. It has nerves, it feels pain. Every scratch is bone-deep torture. She once told me that 100 years ago, this was just a winding path trodden by tortoises. But now traffic flows like a tide. The asphalt is scalding, and the air is filled with gasoline and anxious heat. She lowered her head, dodging the speeding wheels, moving slowly like a trembling rock. She said, "We live too slowly, while the world changes too fast." In just a century, our population has declined by 90%. This is not a war, yet it is an extinction. But she still made it to that patch of sand. Under the setting sun, she used her heavy forelimbs to dig open the soil, difficultly and slowly laying 16 white eggs. No nest, no protection. Everything was left to the wind, left to nature, and left to fate. 4 months later, I broke out of my shell. My body was only 6 cents soft as a fallen leaf, but my eyes were already written with stubborn. From birth, our generation must face the dry heat, predators, and the unknowns of climate change. The plains are 2 degrees hotter than a century ago, but we will still step out without hesitation, crossing dead branches and rock, moving toward the future. This is the fate of us, the Galapagos tortoises. Slow but never ceasing, ancient but never yielding. In the cracks of time, we continue to move forward, spending a lifetime guarding a rhythm that has been forgotten. In this era filled with noise and speed, perhaps you and I should slow down, listen to the whispers of the sun, and see if those footprints that walked for millions of years are still there. Even if my brain has fallen asleep, my body is still flying. I am a wandering albatross. I spend my whole life measuring love and the journey home. Humans say love is separated by mountains, yet mountains and seas can be. I use my wings to measure the earth, and my faith to cross the storms, just to rush to that distant appointment. My wingspan is nearly 3 meters. I can use the currents and to travel 1,000 miles a day between sea and sky, not touching the ground. For humans call that freedom. but they have never understood that this seeming freedom is a voyage forged from loneliness and waiting. When flying, I can let half of my brain sleep, while the other half holds the rudder tight. This is the instinct nature gave me. But what truly keeps me awake is never this ability, but a deep concern, a small island far away. At the end of the wind, that is the reason for my return. That place is my home, and the place where I met him. I was young then, not knowing what love was, but when I first saw him and the sea breeze blew his feathers, my heart drifted with them. We approached each other, spending years confirming the look in our eyes, testing each other's rhythm. From a solo dance to flying to this emotion was slow but certain. Our albatross love is never flashy, but once promised, it is for a lifetime. No matter how far the sea, how fierce the wind, we fly for only one promise. Inseparable for life. Every time I return, I ask myself in my heart, is he still waiting for me on that cliff? This year I returned first. But the island is empty, and his figure is nowhere to be seen. I wait for him in the wind, standing on the cliff top, where we used to gaze, looking through the sea fog, cold wind brushing through my feather. I smell the scent of change. Floating on the sea, plastic bags shimmer like fish scales. Broken fishing nets lurk in the dark currents. Oil slicks glisten ominously under the sun. These unnatural plastic wastes will tangle our wings, erode the waters where we live, and trick us into eating them. Every dive, what awaits us might be a fate of no return. I waited for him for 14 full days. The wind blew from afar, bringing hope, then blowing it away. For us albatrosses, we choose only one partner in our lifetime. Even if he never returns, I will not look for a new reliance. We only wait quietly or grow old alone. Just when I thought he had been swallowed by this, a tiny black dot appeared on the horizon. Those were familiar wings. It's him, he came back. I still knew his flying posture. Although slightly weird, when I ran over and gently touched his feathers with my beak, all the silence received its answer. He was thin, his eyes heightened, but he was alive. That was enough. 10 days later, I laid the crystal of our love. That is our continuation. He and I guard it in turn. When the breeze passes, I whisper in his ear, I knew you would come back. But this sea is no longer forgiving. Food shortage forces him to bring back food for us. We never say goodbye, because for us, parting is not an end, but the beginning of a flight. Our albatross incubation period, the longest among birds. This also means, during this time I must face it alone, but I know he will return, because he knows there is an island, and an albatross waiting for him in the wind. There is a heart always staying in place. Humans say love is light as a whisper and fleeting. But we commit our whole lives to wait. We cannot change the fate of the sea, but we can use our flight to prove that this world is still worth loving firmly. Whether ahead lies stormy waves, we are still flying. For him, for our next generation. We never measure the meaning of every flight, every return is a response to the meaning of lonely but determined. We do not question the wind's direct, only in the cracks of fate. We spend our lives guarding each other, making this world undying. Looking back, plastic on the sea is more than temperatures rise faster than bird migrations. I do not know how long we can fly. How many more reunions under the sunset? We do not complain or speak, just fly in silence. But our silence, have they really heard it? Perhaps in this long voyage, the ones truly lost are not us, but even if my belly is about to explode, I will still obediently open my mouth to welcome the last drop of nectar for the colony. I'm a honeypot ant, a living granary enslaved by genetic shackles. I hang upside down from the dome just to be the last chip placed by my clan on the scale of life and death in this desert. People marvel at the swaying amber nectar in my abdomen, calling it a miracle of nature. But they will never know that this transparent sweetness is a fate deeply engraved in the depths of my bloodline. We need no names, no emotions, and certainly no entertainment or rest. From the moment of birth, the mission of every ant is precisely encoded by pheromones, without the slightest deviation. My memory of childhood is blurry. Back then, I was just a milky white larva, soft as a seed just sprouting. Above my head were the remains of the previous, their shriveled abdomens weathering into brittle husks over time. Workers gently pushed my body with their antennae, slowly feeding me morning dew and nectar. I didn't understand then that this was just the opening line. After 3 molts, I was taken to the storage. It was a palace shining with golden light. On the walls, rows of figures swollen like grapes hung upside down. Their abdomens glowed with a golden light, like suspended amber. In the gaps hung the remains of the previous generation, their wrinkled bodies clinging to the cave roof like dried fruit skins. That is not a medal of honor, but the coldest memory evolution leaves to its offspring. From that moment on, my feet left the ground, clinging to the dome, and my destiny was locked. Workers took turns injecting honeydew into my body. Every time their mouthparts entered, it came with the stinging pain of my exoskeleton. My abdomen swelled like a balloon. The joint membrane slowly expanded until it was 20 times its. In the transparent abdominal cavity, nectar rippled with golden waves. My internal organs were squeezed into my chest cavity. Even my breathing carried a thick, sweet stickiness. Scientists praise the exquisite structure of this crop, but for me, it is a golden cage cast in flesh and blood. One more mouthful for the empire. Pheromone commands come like tides, repeatedly washing over my simple nerves. My body swelled to the size of a grape, fixed at the vent of the dome to condense sweetness. This place also became my eternal execution ground. The hourglass of life began to flow backward. The rainy season is a gift. Cactus flowers bloom into a sea. Nectar is abundant. Workers harvest frantically, injecting it drop by drop into our body. Hundreds of distended abdomens hang from the cave roof like clusters of golden. This is the desert's most luxurious reserve. The dry season, however, is a nightmare. 6 months without rain or flowers. Food sources outside are exhausted. Workers begin to tap my abdomen gently with their. That is the signal for demand, urging me to regurgitate the nectar to buy the clan a respite in the drought. When the last drop of liquid is drained, my abdomen collapses like a deflated sack. Hungry workers, in order to survive, will form raiding parties. Following the scent of nectar, they break into enemy, dragging back their own kind, who still have. I have seen with my own eyes the abdomens of my kin bitten, nectar gushing out like blood, bodies stiffening in convulsions, yet without a shred of resistance. This is the survival law of the clan. However, what terrifies me more than cannibalism is the enemy from outside. Locals call us earth grapes. In the dry season, when we are weakest, they dig us out, pinch our heads with their fingers, and pop my abdomen into their mouths like eating fruit. One bite down, and the nectar bursts between their teeth. But they will never taste the bitterness with it. That is the suffering of hanging in darkness for over 100 days. The joint membranes torn apart. The fate of knowing but being powerless. The sweetness lingers on the tip of the tongue for only a moment, but its price has long seeped into my bones and blood. Sandstorms will blow away my scent, flesh and blood turning into dust, leaving only the next generation hanging quietly, repeating this silent journey. In this desert, no life survives easily. We are locked to the dome by fate, suspending a drop of dew at the end of time, waiting for the wind, waiting for the fate of being bitten down. Some say, this is just the instinctive cycle of the insect, survival, or being consumed, or perishing. But in my faint heartbeat, I prefer to believe this is a silent vigil. I cannot change my ending, but I use my whole body to let the clan cross the dry season, to welcome the next bloom. Perhaps this is the truth of life. In the face of nature's impermanence, we are all but a fleeting entrustment. But as long as this entrustment can let each other take one more, that is enough. For my children to be born safely, I am willing to imprison myself in a tree hollow for half a year. Body as a prisoner, life as a nest, folding my wings, flying no more. This is the utmost limit of my devotion to Mary. From now on, my connection to the world is only this tiny slit. Wind blows in from here, food is delivered through here, and my fate also hides within this crevice. I entrust all my trust to him who waits outside the hole. In the ancient legends of the Dai people, we are called lovebirds, regarded as a symbol of love. Monogamous by nature, fidelity is carved into our genes. If one dies first, the other will not pair again. Even willing to starve to death, just to walk with love, inseparable in life and death. My story began on a hazy morning. At that time I was just a girl not yet ready to entrust my whole life. But he just flew in like that, crossing the treetops with the morning light breaking into my sight. He wasn't handsome, nor elegant, but clumsily sincere. He hopped on the branches, circled in the air, using the method he was least good at to try and knock on the door of my heart. This innocence and persistence made me unable to refuse. We chased each other in the forest, flew in the morning sun. We did no romance, nor sweet words, but every flight wing to wing was like a silent love letter. But love cannot be sustained only by flying and sweetness. He took me to a dark bat cave. That was the place he carefully chose for his proposal. No words, no ceremony, only a desperate offering. He charged into the swarm of bats like a tide. Hunting like this for the first time, he failed, but he was not discouraged. He just returned to the branch, quietly observing every flight trajectory of the bat. Then he adjusted his position and paused. At that perfect moment, with instant precision, he intercepted a bat in midair and gently brought it to my beak. Although it wasn't my favorite food, I accepted him and accepted his promise. This was also a test of providing ability and a witness of a true heart. Soon, he took me to a hollow old tree. Inside was dark, carrying a faint scent of decay. This was the wedding chamber he chose for me, and the place where I would be sealed for 6 months to nurture. I did not hesitate. I tucked my wings and crawled in. The hole was cramped, wings could not stretch. To make more room for the future children, I plucked my flight feathers one by one, using them as bedding in the hollow, just so after the children are born, they can breathe and rest more comfortably. From this moment on, I bid a complete farewell to the sky. Those wings that once carried me through the forest now became the hope holding up new life. He began to bring mud, and I began to repair the seal. Only a slit was left at the entrance. From then on, air, fruit, light, and hope must all pass through here. A grain of soil, 2 transfers. One is his dedication, the other is my response. Day after day, the outline of a home slowly took shape. Soil has no temperature, but because of trust, it was endowed with weight and expectation. I fell into darkness, and he became the only light in my world. Every day, rain or shine, flying over 100 miles back and forth dozens of times just to fill my growing appetite. 6 months, over 20,000 fruits. Numbers are cold, but love is blazing hot. One day, I deliberately didn't catch the fruit he delivered. Not because I was full, nor was I sulking. I just wanted to know, with me in the dark, if he could still sense my emotions. He pushed it in, and I gently pushed it, letting the fruit roll away. He paused on the tree trunk for 3 seconds. That short hesitation was the softest collision between souls. Soon he brought back prey harder to catch, plump mantises and centipedes, just so I could absorb more nutrients. He never ate first. Only after I was full did he pick up the leftover pulp to satisfy his hunger. He rushes outside. I watch from within. This is our marriage. An agreement to trust each other, a silent and prolonged vigil. I shut out the light just to nurture hope. He rushes into darkness just to guard the warmth. Finally, the heartbeat of new life echoed in the tree hollow. 2 tender children were born in my arms, and the responsibility on his shoulders became heavier. Through wind and rain, sun piercing the forest, every return is a fulfillment of love. 6 months, 200 days and nights. He never missed a feeding, never slacked off. He never asked for anything, just gave blindly. And I, in the darkness, left everything to fate. No one can predict where fate will eventually lead. Whether the tree will fall, whether the wind will change suddenly, whether the fruit will run out. Everything is beyond control. But in the midst of uncertainty, we chose each other, fighting the impermanence of fate in the simplest way. People always think nature is cold, only caring about survival of the fit, where the survivor is king. But what truly allows life to continue is never strength, but the willingness, in the endless darkness, to still believe. Believe that the other will not leave. Believe that the storm will eventually cease. Believe that the silence nurtures. In this long night, I hear heartbeats interwoven with the sound of like a slowly flowing elegy. Every transfer of soil, every sliding fruit, is telling the story of fate. It is humble yet firm. Perhaps this is nature's in the most fragile moment, not to give up the struggle, but to continue waiting silently, because the dignity of life never but on being tenacious in silence, and finally growing in the darkness.